It's incredible to think that just 13 kilometers separates two completely different worlds. Just 13 kilometers from the Spanish coastline is Morocco, a North African country with culture, geography and religion completely different from what we know. In this video, we traveled through Morocco to learn more about this country, but not only that. A few months ago, on the 8th of September 2023, there was a devastating earthquake. So what does a country look like right after an earthquake? That's why we traveled to a small village in the mountains to learn about the after effects and learn about the lives of people who had their homes destroyed in just a few minutes. But let's start our trip in Marrakech, one of the main cities in Morocco.
Morocco is one of the most visited countries in Africa, and there are several markets here where you can find everything. I even found this guy selling teeth. There's so much happening at the same time. To everyone who sees it from the outside, it looks like a mess, but it's the way they're used to living.
Being in the middle of the Medina, I think, especially being from England, we think everything's so organised, so clean, and coming to the centre of Marrakech and seeing this as their normal day-to-day life, it's so crazy. We think it's so hectic, but for them, life is so normal. So I think the contrast is super interesting for us, like a big culture shock.
As I said, it's only 13 kilometers gap that separates Europe from Morocco. Morocco is a very interesting country. The population is concentrated in one half of the country, while the other half is called Western Sahara, which is the last colony in all of Africa. This is only one of the least populated areas in the world. It's practically just desert. But Morocco has an eternal fight against a political movement called the Polisario Front, with this territory that you can compare the size with the country of Spain. The interesting thing is that 80% of this area is controlled by Morocco, and they built a giant wall more than 2.7 thousand kilometers long in the middle of the desert to separate what belongs to them and what belongs to other people. It's been a fight for years, and we will still see a lot of news about this in today's day and age.
On September the 8th, 2023, Morocco suffered an earthquake of 6.8 magnitude. The earthquake was reported worldwide, and as things happen so fast on the internet, people pay a lot of attention in the first few days. But a few weeks later, everyone has forgotten about it. But what is life like for people after an earthquake of this size? We met up with a local Moroccan called Maudi, who sings very well, and we drove an hour and a half to a small village called Amizmis, which was very badly affected.
وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة.
We're here in Amizmis. It's a city 1 hour on the south of Marrakech, in the middle of the mountains, the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, and this area was really affected by the earthquake. And it's interesting to see, we are here to see because all the medias, all the journals, they come days after, hours after the earthquake to document how is the life of the people right after. But it's been months that passed and no one really talks about these areas right now, so we're here to document that. Let's go and see.
Imagine your life is normal, and just in a few minutes a natural disaster happens, turning your life upside down. We are so used to feeling secure, but at any moment something like this can happen. In Amizmis, we met a local woman who showed us inside of her house, which had been destroyed from the earthquake.
We're entering her house that was really affected by the earthquake. This used to be an apartment. Her son was living in this area and they woke up with everything shaking. This place was an entire apartment, so they had a wall, they had a ceiling, and everything started falling apart, and they desperate, had to run towards the ground, and this in a couple minutes everything fell apart.
عندي الله ما عندي البيت ما عندي الملح ما عندي الزيتون ما عندي.
Então está falando que ellos no tienen nada, solamente Dios, porque aquí la gente dice gracias a Dios por el bueno y por el malo. Eso que como calma y por la región como te explico.
The human being is incredible. Even though she lost practically everything she had, she still had hope and kept so calm. She was also very happy and welcoming. She offered us tagine, which is a traditional food here, and she also loved Eda. She wanted us to leave Eda behind. As she's homeless, she lives in a tent in the middle of the street. But before we visit her tent, I want to give some context about this country. Morocco has a large part of its area in the Sahara Desert. It's very important to go to the desert to understand what the people who live in this region of the world are like. So we took the road to Merzouga, a small village in the middle of the desert, almost on the border of Algeria, to understand what it's like to live in such conditions. And welcome to the Sahara Desert. This is not the biggest desert in the world because Antarctica, for example, is a desert and it's bigger than Sahara Desert. And this place, I've never seen any place like this before. The dunes can reach up to 180 meters. It's like a 70-floor building. Never seen any place like this before in my life. We're here like about 1 hour driving into the camel, into the desert. And this animal is such an incredible animal. Look at his eyebrows. He has these huge eyebrows for the sand to not come into his eyes. This animal is all adapted to be in this type of environment. He can drink like 120 liters of water in less than 10 minutes. He can survive days and days with not a lot of food and water. This is a really incredible animal. We're going to talk about this animal later. Camels are a big part of the culture in the Sahara Desert. These animals can live for 50 years and drink 120 liters of water in 10 minutes. Camels were such valued animals that they were used as a currency before the invention of money.
It's always interesting to see a map of light pollution around the world. It shows, for example, the Amazon rainforest is very sparsely inhabited, but on the other hand, there is a major contrast in the USA, where you have much more light on one side compared to the other. But the light map in Africa is very interesting. This is a continent without much light, and much of this is due to the Sahara Desert. Life in or near the desert is not easy because of the lack of nutrients and expansion. The Sahara Desert grows about 5 kilometers every year. And as we already know, in the desert it works like this. It's very hot during the day and very cold at night, making life so much more difficult for the people who don't have a house to live in.
So I'm just going to give you guys a quick tour of their tent, obviously because their house is too dangerous to live in, they're actually scared of the walls falling down. So there's 4 people that live in this tent. You've got their little kitchen space here, and then there's 4 beds. So 2 single beds, a double bed, and then behind me is the storage space. So I guess like for clothes. For 4 people, this is a really tight space. And the only source of electricity they have is probably connected to another source of electricity, giving them 1 light bulb. So this is all of this space that they have for now until they build a new home.
Seeing the situation makes us rethink our lives. Imagine you lose everything overnight. It makes you think that what really matters are the people you love, your health, and everything material is not so important. Next door to the woman, we went to another tent of a man who also lost his house. He's been living like this for 4 months and doesn't really know when he'll get his house back. But how does an earthquake work? The Earth's crust is made up of 7 large and other smaller tectonic plates. Below the Earth crust, there is the liquid mantle. But due to currents in the Earth's mantle, the plates begin to move and float. They move around a little every year. The movement can be passing each other or colliding. And this tension can create an immense pressure, therefore making the Earth shake. Some places in the world are more affected because they have tectonic plates very close together, like Japan, where 4 tectonic plates meet. Brazil, for example, doesn't have this problem because there are no tectonic plates close by. But let's keep on exploring Morocco to see what else this incredible country has to offer. Morocco has a very diverse range of landscapes. At the same time, it has the Sahara Desert and it has mountains that you can go skiing. but it also has beaches, big cities, desert, and forests. It's a very diverse place.
Behind me, there's a really old traditional Moroccan town that is actually used today for really famous films like Game of Thrones, Gladiator, and even Asterix and Obelix. Years ago, Muslims and Jews used to live in this medieval city, but now there's only 5 families that live here because there's no energy and also there's no clean running water. In the winter, the water levels raise up to 2 meters, so it's really hard to cross the water. But luckily there's a bridge right over there.
Africa is a continent with a lot of history. In fact, humans developed in Africa. All the ancient fossils of humans who lived millions of years ago come from here. We're talking about 7 million years. That's why this year we're going to show much more of Africa and the Middle East here on this channel. Furthermore, many ancient traditions still remain today. In Morocco and throughout North Africa, there are Berber people. These are people that have been here for centuries. They live a nomadic life and change places depending on the weather.
The Berber people, first people comes to North Africa, before the Arabs comes, and the Jews and the Arabs comes in 9th century to North Africa, And the Berbers, we have Berber traditions also, and still Berber language we speak also. Berber language is different than Arabs language,
Yes.
It's a right opposite than Arabs, It's a right opposite than Arabs, and we call this Tifina.
Okay.
Tifina, the Berber writing.
Look how fascinating. The Berbers are so old that no one knows exactly where they come from or when exactly they appeared, but they are old enough to have experienced the changes of the Sahara Desert. This part of the world wasn't always a desert. In fact, the Sahara Desert was like this about 10,000 years ago, full of greenery, flowers, lakes, and rivers. And 10,000 years isn't even that long. The Berber people experienced this change day after day.
We're currently in the 2nd largest valley in Morocco, which is really close by to the Sahara Desert. And it's so interesting to see how people live between these huge rock faces and obviously the vegetation they have here, because obviously they have the natural stream of water, which is obviously quite rare to see, and the Berber people live here. It's so cool to see the mix of like huge rock faces, almost like mountainous, with the desert, and then obviously loads of vegetation. So they're able to plant so many things here, like olive trees and figs and so many different things.
Morocco is a country with a lot of diversity, history, and also a gateway for us to start exploring more of Africa and Middle East on this channel. This continent is rich in history and culture, and this was a video about Morocco. And see you in another place in Africa.